Down. Aaron, thank you for that introduction. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting me. It's my honor to join you virtually here today. However, it would have been wonderful to see everyone in person, of course, but we continue to be vigilant about staying healthy and safe as we go through this pandemic. However, I am pleased to be here today to share some of PMI's perspectives on the way that work is changing, on how we are broadening our offerings to help more people than ever to lead change and turn ideas in reality, and on what we call the project economy, in which work and value is increasingly delivered in the forms of projects. That is certainly something we are all asked to do in the face of so many fast-moving challenges. Your conference today is very appropriate. It has a very appropriate theme: project management in a VUCA world. In fact, our challenges today as project professionals and change makers are not only about working in a VUCA world, but also about how we as project professionals, change makers, and organizations need to adjust to continue to be effective in a VUCA world. So let me first begin with an overview of PMI. PMI itself is on a mission. We aim to empower people to make ideas a reality. We all know of the current global trends that are happening around the world, such as climate crisis, COVID-19 pandemic, the equality movements. These are all magnifying the need for project professionals and all change makers to have project management skills. Our growth strategy in PMI, which today we call 4.0, is to address the project management needs of our existing community of project professionals and welcome a new audience of global change makers. Change makers need the skills, knowledge, and expertise in order to change the world for the better. So by expanding our reach and building lifelong relationship with our stakeholders, PMI aims to increase its impact to the world, and so can you. Today, the world is changing rapidly, and PMI is changing as well to ensure our relevance and increase our impact to the world. Our community is strong, and together we can shape the future.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you sharing your screen? Because we cannot see your screen yet.
Oh, sorry about that. I had set it up before. Let me see what has happened. Let me do that again. A minute, just go back and see what's happening to my screen. Where's the... I'll just share it again and see what happens.
Okay, I'm seeing not the presentation version, but the slide.
The slide, okay.
Presentation mode.
Put it on presentation mode. What are you seeing now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so I'll just go back one. So I was talking about PMI is on a mission, and I talked about global trends and our growth strategy, and how as a community, our community is strong, and together we can shape the future. So PMI, we have proven we can help people around the world work smarter. I'm grateful that whenever I'm stuck on a problem, I have a global network of peers I can call on for ideas and inspiration. At PMI, one of our greatest assets as an organization is our global reach. Here, as you can see on the screen, is a snapshot of where we are today based on our internal data collected early in 2021. 1.6 million certifications, 14,000 volunteers, 600,000 plus members, 214 countries and territories, 308 chapters and counting, and over 100 global organizations working with PMI in our Global Executive Council to help shape the future of project management and the organization. We are lucky to benefit from the insights and perspectives of professionals from around the globe. I must also stress that our chapters and volunteers have always been PMI's secret weapon. And whilst there's been a lot of change at PMI over the years, one thing that will never change is that essential role that our chapters and volunteers play. This, of course, includes the PMI chapter of Mauritius. So what is our aspiration within PMI? Our aspiration as an expanded social impact is about empowering people to make ideas a reality. That is what we are all about. Everything we do is driven by a core winning aspiration, empowering people to make ideas a reality. So what we're trying to do is by enabling people to become change makers, enterprises are able to sense and respond to shocks, drive changes, and face the future. That is a quote directly from Pulse of the Profession 2021. People are the key to success with projects and making ideas into reality. People, emphasis on people, are the key to success. You would have likely heard PMI recently talking about concepts of change makers. The concept of change makers is purposely universal. Change makers aren't just project, program, portfolio managers and engineers, sometimes referred as project professionals. A change maker could be a teacher, an architect, or even a designer. If you think about all the people around you, everyone you know that works with some form of project every day, you will see that change makers are everywhere you look. Change makers oftentimes don't know that they're involved in important projects. To them, their project work is just about work. We see they have scope, they have schedules, they have costs, they have deliverables, they look at risks and everything else we are familiar with. They see that they have a lot of important work to do, yet they suspect there are ways they could improve. They suspect, they don't know. Because these change makers don't have the title project managers on their business cards or on their LinkedIn accounts, they don't identify with project management or PMI, at least not yet. However, there's a need and a willingness by all change makers, no matter what their profession is, to improve, to have a mastery of their craft. This is where we, PMI, can help with our chapters. We have knowledge that we share freely. As an example, our PM Box 7th edition, which has just been released. All tools that can help people, change makers, make their ideas a reality. We have already started seeing this change occur in some professions. Take lawyers, for example. There's a great article for the American Bar Association titled "The Rise of Legal Project Management" that describes how lawyers can use project management to make things happen. So even though we're expanding our reach to change makers, this does not mean that we're leaving our core audience behind. Professional project managers have dedicated their lives to driving change effectively. Previously, as an organization, we are aiming to help project professionals, usually those over 35 years old. But today, we're aiming to also help young professional students and other change makers, expanding the pool of professionals that we can interact with and where PMI can help project managers and change makers evolve and become better. So far, I've talked a lot about change and how exciting it is, but it's important to remember that change is constant. The evolving nature of project management, along with the needs of skill building, change makers, drives a need for PMI to offer an expanded product portfolio that will include our time-honored tools, but also extend into new areas. We have seen three major eras in the past 70 years. Waterfall in the early parts, 1950s to 2000, which was tied heavily to the Industrial Revolution. Agile, recently in 2000 to today's time, which has been tied heavily to the technology revolution. And now the talks of what we call hyper agile, tied directly to the concept of citizens developer, a citizens developer revolution, where anyone can put together technology and change to change how businesses work. PMI itself offers an expanded product portfolio that will include our time-honored offerings, but also extends into new areas. We will more directly address the needs of the youth and change makers through targeted offerings and experiences. Our expanded product portfolio would also provide choices, opportunities to learn and evolve to gain tailored skill sets, and I emphasize skill sets. PMI is busy to disrupt itself and continue to offer tools like evolution of ways of working credentials, all of which empower change makers, empower individuals to make ideas a reality. A great example of a change maker, and this is just an example, is Kenneth Harris II of NASA, who PMI recognized on its Future 50 list of emerging leaders. We purposely created a Future 50 list of emerging leaders from a wide range of sectors and industries to help and highlight many examples of change makers. Ken started at NASA when he was just 16 years old. He worked on weather satellites that predicted hurricanes and typhoons. He worked on telescopes that can see back in time to the origins of the universe. He knows the importance of failure and why it is an essential part of executing a technical project, if done right. His work as a project leader on the James Webb Space Telescope program made him one of the youngest African Americans in the US Space Agency's history to lead an integration effort on a multi-billion US dollar satellite mission. Today, he is the database lead engineer for NASA's Joint Polar Satellite System, J2 mission, as well as a powerful advocate for science and technology studies. So while Ken is an amazing guy, you don't have to be on the Future 50 list to make a difference. One of my favorite stories about NASA is when President John F. Kennedy was visiting NASA headquarters for the first time in 1961. While touring the facility, he introduced himself to a janitor who was mopping the floor and asked the janitor what he did at NASA. The janitor replied, I'm helping to put a man on the moon. The point of this story is that we all have a part to play, no matter what role, title we happen to have. If we're helping to make ideas a reality, then we are change makers in action. So let me show a brief video recapping some of the skills and capabilities most in demand of us today in the project economy.
When I look ahead of the future, I think that the biggest challenge will be understand really the work of artificial intelligence and where is the place for project managers and people working in projects.
The changes of project management processes, the changes of the way project managers work will definitely be more reliant on technology.
And that's going to increase the importance of how people work together and collaborate. That's going to grow an increasingly important component of personal skills, collaboration skills, and leadership skills that go above and beyond the traditional technical skills of project management.
But we need to prepare the machines to deliver our projects better, so we're not doing the repetitive tasks ourselves. So we're not reactive to the market, we create the next market of project management.
The future of project management is, I would say, disrupted. Fast delivery, compressed cycles, as well as fast failure, if that is the case.
Leading business with agility. Any future development should reflect that.
I think in future of project management, it will be more agile and more business related. Because these days we talk about value. In order to understand the value of that project, you need to understand the business. You got to have the technical management skills, the leadership skills, but also understand the business.
In a global environment, it's going to be more diverse cultures coming into the workplace. Therefore, a different take on skills, different time zones, totally different business practices. So you need to plan for those challenges.
We need to take care of our environment, to take care of our planet, to go for sustainable projects that take care of the human being.
When we talk about DevOps and we talk about Agile, I'm asked, do those kind of methodologies strip away the need for a project manager? I think absolutely not. I think we are in need of even more project managers in the future. We are getting more and more project oriented in our businesses, in our societies.
Artificial intelligence will take some of the jobs, but I think they cannot be a leader. So as a project manager, if you are a good leader, you are going to continue to perform your profession.
So as project managers, we have to get better at leading teams and leading people, working with people, and find ways to include automation in what we do while still maintaining our human aspect, our humanity.
It's difficult to see something clear in the future, but we should stay prepared to face with flexibility new challenges, new situation. Be prepared to change into something completely different.
Be prepared to change into something different. Powerful messages there. But it's all from a PMI perspective. Yeah, so many interesting insights from the video, I would say. But it's all as the world continues to build a path towards path forward from COVID-19. Our community of project professionals and change makers will be in greater demand than ever before. And our goal at PMI is to continue expanding how we serve them. So, what is the future? What is happening? How are we shaping the future together, especially in this VUCA world? The future isn't something you sit around waiting for, because our future is changing. We cannot remain still. Yeah? The future is a reality that we decide to create, where when buildings don't remain blueprints, but become bricks, where cures don't just live in laboratories, but in bodies, and when inspiration and perspiration intersect and intelligence and drive make ideas a reality. So in this, shaping the future together is all about making ideas reality within what we, PMI, call the project economy, and more especially in today's environment of a VUCA world. So let's look at Africa. Change makers and project professionals are especially needed in Africa, especially needed in this part of the world. The United Nations Children's Fund estimates that 2.5 billion people will call Africa their home by 2050. That's 1/4 of the world's population. 1/4 of the world's population in the future will call Africa their home. The world's fastest growing cities today are in sub-Saharan Africa, including Kinshasa, Dar es Salaam, and Nairobi. According to The Economist, sub-Saharan Africa's population is growing at 2.7% a year, which is more than twice as fast as South Asia, which is growing at 1.2%, and Latin America at 0.9%. This means that Africa is adding to itself the population of France or Thailand every 2 years. In Africa alone, the anticipated population growth over the next 30 years means that 75 million new homes will have to be built. That is 65,000 plus homes a day, every day for the next 30 years. Not to mention all the additional infrastructure, utilities, and services required as a result of this growth. Imagine the impact that young professional managers can make here. Upgrading transportation, building schools, water management, city planning, and much more. That's what we call the youth quake in Africa, because the statistics that says that over 50% of the population in Africa are less than 35. The youth quake. There's so much potential in Africa. Project management and change makers can make a difference here. So we're here today to talk about project management in a VUCA world. So what are the shocks that have happened as a result that we continue to talk about VUCA, and we continue to talk of how we as project professionals and change makers can play a part in this new environment? Let's think back. It has never been easy delivering a project on time, on budget. But today, we face so many more unexpected challenges. Navigating a VUCA landscape is now table stakes for leaders operating in the world, reshaped further by 3 S's. Shock, the shock of these massive global megatrends that have been happening over the past couple of years. Sensing, the ability to look at what these shocks are and deal with it. And speeds, the previous speakers spoke about speed, and the speed to react, to deliver that. The world is moving so quickly that teams must form and pivot quickly in response, further driving the world shift towards projectization. I mentioned earlier about the project economy, about organizations looking at projectizing the work that they do. So for project managers and project management and change makers, their marching orders are increasingly shifting from someone who is saying, here's a project, to here's a problem and a desired outcome. One could say this is almost more of a call for help. So we're saying, not here's a project, to here's a problem and a desired outcome. This isn't always easy to reinvent oneself, especially with many demands on our time. But I feel a lot of optimism when I think about the future. The upside of all of this change is the opportunity that organizations and individuals alike have to deliver greater value than ever. So I talked about global trends. Let's look at them. Organizations will need us much more than ever as they need to tackle unprecedented changes. Just think of the upheavals we saw this year alone and the unexpected shocks. From the grounding of the Ever Given in the Suez Canal, if you can remember back that far, it feels like so much has happened since, to COVID-19 that we all know about, to the continued extreme weather events like Hurricane Ida in the US. PMI itself conducts its own assessment of the most urgent long-term trends around the globe. Everything from climate change to shifting demographics to the latest breakthroughs in technology like artificial intelligence. We call this summary a signpost report, which you can find online at the PMI website. However, we have synthesized findings from research and news reports. We spoke with industry leaders from around the globe, and we analyzed information from a range of databases, all to gain a greater understanding of where the world is heading and how project professionals can prepare. A clear takeaway from these trends is that the world is moving so quickly that teams must form and pivot quickly in response to driving a greater shift towards projectization. This includes everything, global pandemics to COVID-19 to new demands for infrastructure, as examples I gave within the African continent. You see them across the world, in your country and every country, in the form of heavy investments in highways, railways, and ports, and other infrastructure that will create further demand for future engineering project professionals and change makers to make these ideas into reality. Our Pulse of the Profession research shows that organizations thrived amongst these type of changes this year. Organizations have thrived. We are only just beginning to see now how the pandemic will shift long-term trends in terms of how teams organize and deliver work, accelerating the shift that PMI calls the project economy, in which work and value is increasingly delivered in the form of projects. Work and value is increasingly delivered in the form of projects. That means a fundamental shift in how organizations and their teams play and their work. Both people and organizations need to thrive through ambiguity. To succeed, organizations need people that can adapt their approaches to new ways of working, sensing change, mitigating shock, and responding with speed. Organizations, to succeed, need people that can adapt their approaches to new ways of working. And I'm repeating that, sensing change, mitigating shock, and responding with speed. So people need to rapidly evolve to help them deliver outcomes. We see the future in which more people than ever benefit from cultivating project skills as change makers. Change makers, project professionals, proactively drive change and transformation efforts for business people and society overall. By definition, they are the ones who make change happen and make ideas into reality. Career paths have traditionally been very linear in the past. Now, careers are taking a non-linear turn. Change makers tackle diverse global challenges and require a broad skill set with foundations in project management alongside additional skills tailored to the needs of these challenges. The very structure of career path is changing to a much more non-linear format as talented individuals move from project to project. And now, 79% of executives agree that the future of work will be based more on specific projects and skills than on roles. So speaking about skills that are important, these are several we should talk about. The pandemic has changed the emphasis on what it takes to be successful, from the C-suite to the front lines. The human cost of the crisis has made it more important than ever to connect with authenticity. And the previous speaker talked about that, authenticity. And with the world in chaos, it takes uniquely human qualities to navigate increasingly complex and ambiguous challenges. So what skills can you learn? Segmenting the world organization into two. In blue on the slides, you will have gymnastic organizations who think innovatively about their work. In red, you have the traditional enterprises. When we asked leaders at these organizations how they valued a wide variety of skills, these four came up as the most important. Collaborative leadership. The days of command and control leadership are over. Today, you'll often find yourself working across silos and teams with people and stakeholders outside of a traditional rigid chain of command. This dynamic requires us to lead with persuasion, negotiation, inspiration, and collaboration, all to yield the best contribution from those around us. Adaptability. In the project economy, work is much less routine and predictable. That's why we see such a premium for talent who are capable of adapting and jumping into ambiguous situations. Innovative mindsets. Part of being an effective change maker is maintaining the ability to see the potential in any problem or situation. Do you see an inefficiency or outdated process and complain? Or do you propose a novel solution. Empathy. And finally, empathy. It's perhaps the ultimate power skill in giving you the ability to see that the world from the perspective of your customer or stakeholder or colleague. We call these 4 areas power skills because they are so important, especially collaborative leadership. The number 1 skill leaders in enterprises are prioritizing. Similarly to the question we went over before about skills, if we segment the world organization into 2, in blue, you have the gymnastic enterprises who think innovatively about work. In red, you have the traditional enterprises. Our research has shown that traditional waterfall techniques are used at both. However, you can see the gymnastic organizations are more willing to use agile and hybrid approaches. But it's not about walking away from waterfall altogether. It's about ensuring that teams customize their approach for the project at hand. So let me close with a few takeaways. And I'd like and want you to keep in mind, being innovative is the backbone of resilient gymnastic organizations. Talent is portable, and you can take your skills anywhere. And now with remote work, this allows people to work for any company around the world. Upskilling your power skills has a huge return on investment. Collaborative leadership, I talked about, adaptability, I've talked about, innovative mindset, I've talked about, and empathy, the power skills. Upskilling your power skills has a huge return on investment. And to succeed, organizations need people that can adapt their approaches to new ways of working by sensing change, mitigating shock, and responding with speed. Through this, we can power the project economy in and beyond the VUCA world. So thank you. And thank you all here today, and to the PMI Mauritius chapter boards and chapter members for all you have done and you do for PMI and the project management profession. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ike. That was a very inspiring session. So we'll take a few questions from the audience. So let me just start with one of the questions. A few of our attendees raised the question on the future of the organization and roles. So moving from sort of hierarchy to a more project basis roles. So is it the end of the hierarchy? Are we really saying that people would be less in a hierarchy?
That's an interesting question. I think what we're saying is that organizations are key in this VUCA environment where things are moving fast. You know, innovation is changing so quickly. In the last 5 years, before it used to take about 50 years for a major innovation to occur. Now it takes less than 5 years. So organizations want to deliver quickly. Now they have found that if you structure yourself around a project, which we all know the definition of a project has a start and it has an end, then you're more likely to succeed in an environment like that. So it's not about the organization, hierarchical structure of an organization. It's about the ability to deliver value. And that ability to deliver value, if you put it in a use a project-based approach and projectize, then you have more success in the ability to deliver that project. Because if you do it as an operation, as in a day-to-day environment, then you're not likely to have a project plan. As an example, you're not likely to have a start date. You're not likely to have an end date. You're not likely to have a project manager who's focused on delivering that particular initiative or objective. So it's all about thinking, I need to do something, let's do it in a project-based manner.
All right. Yeah, that's very true. Projects are everywhere, and everything we do basically are or now projects. And more importantly, in this VUCA world, it's all about projects and starting, ending projects. And some projects fail, some projects are very, very successful. And can you give us some insights how PMI is helping project managers with new products to get into this VUCA world?
Yeah, if most of you are aware, over the past 2 years or so, PMI has released a number of projects. So first of all, we have the world-class leading PMP certification. Okay, so that certification is there to help individuals understand project management. We've recently released a Project Ready, which is a tool that you can go into and get some basic understanding around project management, and is actually free. And then we have several other tools, but one of importance is Wicked Problem Solving, which is another tool that PMI has that helps you think about how you deal with problems and helps you put tools and methodologies around being able to solve problems. So that's another product that PMI has that helps make organizations. But outside that, there's a wealth of information within PMI. So if you remember, you have access to a wealth of information and individuals, and we have PMI.org where you can go in and there's wealth of information there, and we have got the projectmanagement.com with a wealth of information there. Then we've got our chapters, obviously our chapters and our volunteers and members that are there as almost indirect mentors and guides that can guide any individual around how they want to drive or get better within the project management profession.
All right, thank you, Ike. There's a question from the audience, from Ziad, a question and a comment. So he talks about the rapid change that we are seeing in organization, and he mentions that it's a challenge due to change in mindset and going into the agile world, where we see high risk of people being overstressed, long working hours, and very poor planning. So how do you see us addressing these challenges, especially in terms of poor planning?
Yeah, poor planning. There are two aspects to poor planning. One is the individual, one is the organization. And I think there's several ways you can look at it. And I've mentioned, PMI provides a lot of tools that can help with that. And we have our chapters that can give you guidance. But the key within an agile and VUCA environment is, and I use an example, when there's a major disaster around the world, people come together and work effectively to resolve the disaster. Okay, that's the aspect. That's what agility is about. It's about coming together with a common objective in order to solve a problem. So when we start talking about agile, we shouldn't think about it of maybe that there's lack of procedure or process. It's about, first of all, understanding that when you're doing something, ensure that every member of the team has a common understanding and is part and sharing in that story to deliver the outcome. So once everybody understands why you're doing something, the value behind it, your team, why you're doing it, the value behind it, then they feel part of a success story or part of a train that is leading towards a success story. And that therefore brings more bonding together and then allows you to be more reactive and agile in how you move forward, because everybody's participating in delivering the outcome and in planning the process going forward. And if you go back to previous times, what would happen is that maybe a project manager will give you a plan and then the team works towards the plan. And sometimes the team doesn't have any input into that plan. They're simply being task-based. And if I quote the previous speaker, he said, business is not a form of working. They're just busy doing things, but they're not actually working. But when you have an agile team and a collaborative team, everybody is contributing to the plan. Everybody is contributing to the vision which they understand, and everybody is working to the success of that particular initiative. So it's really about people. we're changing now because of various technologies, VUCA environment. We're changing more, and we're looking more at the human side of things, the people side of things. So what we need to get first is make sure that the people side is correct, because when people believe and they have the passion, they will always drive for the betterment of your project or your initiative. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think for the last 2 or 3 talks that we had today, the last sessions, there was a lot of emphasis on collaboration and the people aspect of managing projects. And I see it also like the PMBOK 7 and the evolution also of PMI and the PMP puts a lot of emphasis on the people skills, which is where we all at the moment agree there's a lot of work to run our projects, especially in the world that we are today. So that's great, Ike. We are at the end of the session. Any last word from yourself? All I would say is that thank you, Mauritius chapter, for all you do, and your boards, yourself, Arun, the board, and the members. Keep it going. We're all about making ideas a reality. Everybody, in some way or the other, is a change maker, a project professional. Let's all work together to make ideas a reality. Thank you.